The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
Ooh. What's up, fight fans? Welcome into another edition of UFC Best Bets with myself, Brett Okamoto, and my partner, Ian Parker. You are in the right place if you are looking to put a little bit of action on the fights this weekend, which take place in Las Vegas, UFC Fight Night, Vicente Luque versus Belal Muhammad. But before we get to all of the action of this weekend, we're going to look back at what happened last weekend in Jacksonville, Florida, UFC 273. What a card it was. And Ian, a little bit of a mixed bag, but it would have been a heck of a night had Petr Yan won the decision, which some people, actually myself included, thought that he probably should have. What did you think about last weekend?
Yeah, well, look, of course we wanted Khamzat Chimaev to get that finish. He almost did in the first round. I was still very impressed. For those that think that mystique is gone because he didn't, I think you're crazy. Guy's fourth fight in the UFC, ranked 11, went in there and beat a very tough Gilbert Burns. But to your point with the Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling fight, good afternoon to everybody from a betting standpoint, except for the judges there. They did hurt us, as long as many others. It came down to that round one. I did score for Petr Yan at the same time. I also gave Aljo a 10-8 in round two, so I thought it was actually going to be a draw. But you know what? Sometimes that's how it goes. It would have been a big difference. And Volkanovski, of course, I say that he doesn't get a finish in a long time, and he goes in there and makes a tremendous statement. So we're going to bounce back this week, but that was a hell of a card last week.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I had Petr Yan in that kind of that definitive round one, but it was very close. You could have argued for a 10-8, so congratulations to Aljamain Sterling. I do see him as very worthy of holding on to that championship belt. Okay, let's look at the main card for UFC Fight Night this weekend in the Apex. It is a nice main event, 5-round fight between Vicente Luque and Belal Muhammad. It is a rematch of a bout that took place years ago. In the middleweight division, you got Caio Borralho taking on Gadri Omargadridov, Miguel Baeza taking on Andre Fialho, Pat Sabatini, TJ Laramie on the card. A little bit of a mix-up of wide odds and close odds, so we're going to get to all of those here shortly. But let's start with that main event, Ian. As I mentioned, it's a rematch of a fight that we've already seen. Vicente Luque beat Belal Muhammad by first-round knockout, and that's really one of only the people who have been able to beat Belal Muhammad in his UFC career. He comes back at -170 for the rematch, and I think the big difference, obviously, is there's been a lot of time gone by, of course, but there's also the fact that this is a 5-round fight, which I think is probably something that you're going to mention here when you look at the breakdown of this matchup.
Yeah, you know me all too well here. Look, since they last fought, both men have been on an absolute tear. One's gotten in wars, and one has just evolved tremendously. We've seen Vicente Luque be the one get into the wars. Sometimes he just gets into that flow. He gets emotional, and he just is kind of, in my opinion, becoming something he really is going to get himself in trouble at some point. He's a guy that started off his career really dominating on the ground. Now he's become more of a stand-up, a finishing guy. When you got a guy like Belal, who's very methodical, high-level IQ, uses the striking to set up the wrestling, and likes to drag people into deep waters. For me, Brett, you may be surprised here. I like Belal Muhammad in this fight. I think that he has more paths to victory. I think the wrestling is something that kind of can hurt Vicente Luque. If he can't hurt Belal early, and look, Leon Edwards, no secret here, I love Belal, but Leon dominated Belal in that first round, but he couldn't get him out of there. And he brings pressure. He throws a lot of combinations, output. Vicente Luque is more of a counter striker. And when you're a counter striker, in order for you to truly have success, you need your opponent to either be not a good southpaw or to really be reckless. Belal is neither of those. He's orthodox and he's not reckless in the slightest bit. He knows what he's going to do the whole time. On top of that, we've seen Vicente Luque against someone like Brian Barberena, where he's faded over the course of 3 rounds. Belal doesn't get tired. We've seen him stick to a game plan. I think this fight goes over 2.5 rounds. I think this fight goes over 3.5 rounds. And I think Belal is going to surprise a lot of people here. And I think this is someone who's flying under the radar, maybe a dark horse in the division to eventually fight for a title, especially if he's able to dominate someone like Vicente Luque.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you talk about being a dark horse in the division. You look at his last 5 fights. He has been an underdog in some of those. I can understand why you like the over 2.5, the over 3.5. One thing I would ask you about is you saw those method of victory odds, and all of a sudden you take Belal Muhammad just by a finish, a submission, or a TKO. It jumps all the way up to plus 550, I believe, when I saw on that graphic. This is a 5-round fight, like we have mentioned. You said that you've seen Vicente Luque fade. He is a guy who likes to go out, throw a lot of heat early, and sometimes that wears him out a bit. But Belal Muhammad, I talked to him last week, and he said, I'm going to get finishes. Just give me 5-round fights. I will finish guys in the 4th round, 5th round. I'm just getting started in the 3rd round. Most guys are happy the fight is over by the time that the round 3 comes along against me. Do you give any pause? Do you give any consideration at plus 550 that you got a guy in Vicente Luque who might fade and a guy in Belal Muhammad who you like to win the fight who will actually rise in those 4th and 5th rounds?
From a betting standpoint, because Belal's already an underdog, I would sometimes stay away from that. And I think also the decision is kind of something I was salivating over because Belal is kind of a decision machine, not by choice. It's not like he's not trying to finish fights. It's just his style is to punish, position over submission. He really takes his time with things. And I think to his point, 5 rounds is always going to favor someone like himself who has just got cardio for days and he takes his time. For Vicente Luque, he has to land very early on Belal. He's got to take out his legs. He's got to do whatever he can do to slow him down because if he doesn't land that bomb early, that overhand right, I don't know where else he beats him. We know that he's got a good Bravo choke. He ended his last 2 fights with that submission. Which kind of scares me for Luque, though, is Michael Chiesa walked right up to him, took him down, and took the back very early. Chiesa slipped, and obviously Luque was able to capitalize. But Belal doesn't make mistakes. I think Belal is just as good, if not better wrestler than Chiesa with better striking. I just think Belal, this is the right time for him. If he can get a finish, I think it'd be by TKO or KO, ground and pound, especially after wearing him out. It's hard to see Luque getting finished by anybody. The guy's got a great chin. He's tough. And again, off his back jiu-jitsu-wise, I think in this fight, he's going to use it primarily for defense.
Yeah, he does have a fantastic chin. In fact, Belal Muhammad even mentioned that to me, saying that, a lot of times, a lot of his knockouts come almost because of that chin, because he'll put it out there, have you reaching in to get him, and then he's great at taking a shot and then firing one back, and that's how guys get hurt against him. Let's take a look at the top 10 rankings of this welterweight division. Like I said, it's a very, very important fight at 170 pounds. You like Belal here. Of course, he's coming with the little bit of a plus money, so there is some risk involved in this one. But I think it's interesting that the first time these guys fought, Vicente Luque was about a minus 125 favorite. Now he's all the way up to minus 170. I don't see any area that Vicente Luque has improved drastically over the improvements that Belal has made. And as we've been talking about, this is a 5-round fight, which I think favors Belal. So I like the value here in Belal is what you're saying. How about when you look at the rest of this division, when you look at the Covington, when you look at Edwards, when you look at Chimaev, you see any situation in which you would like to take one of these guys at plus money? Because I got to believe that they would be plus money against any of those names.
I think after this fight, it doesn't matter who Belal or Luque fight, you're right, it's going to be plus money. You know what? I think Luque actually matches up well against someone in Gilbert Burns. We saw Gilbert fight Chimaev. Crazy fight. His stand-up was there, but we saw him get hit a lot. Chimaev just couldn't finish him. Maybe he had an adrenaline dump. If you leave your chin out there for Luque to hit it, he's going to knock you out. Belal doesn't make those mistakes. And I think for Belal, if he gets this win, the Chimaev fight, if that doesn't happen with Kobe, him calling out Kobe is there. I know he's called out Jorge Masvidal. I think Belal just presents a very quiet, dangerous problem for a lot of people because of that IQ and that cardio. And as we've seen, cardio is king. Colby Covington has made a career out of it. You don't have to be the best striker. You could be a very good wrestler. But if your cardio is there and that pace is just too hard to handle and you fade, it doesn't even matter. And that's something that Belal brings to the table in so many different fights that we've seen.
It's so true, man. It's not very flashy, but when you got fight IQ and you got cardio, you can do a lot of damage in any of these divisions, as we've seen. Okay, let's go to the co-main event. It's 185 pounds. You got 2 guys who are coming off the Contender Series. Caio Borralho taking on Gadri Omagadridov, who is 13-0. He's making his UFC debut. He finished his Contender Series bout in October via a knee bar. 2 guys who, we have not seen a lot of, especially, obviously, inside the UFC octagon. Omagadridov, a minus 135 favorite. You confident in any side here?
I just am amazed that you pronounce both those names flawlessly. I'm not even going to attempt it here. So for that reason, I'm going to go with a different
practicing all morning, so don't give me too much credit for it.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't even hear what you said right there. All I heard was you pronounced it perfectly that I said. No, listen, you got two guys that they looked great on the Contender Series, okay? However, when a lot of these guys come off the Contender Series, sometimes they're a little hesitant, their styles, but you have two guys, if you go look at their records, finishes. I've seen a little bit of holes in each one. One guy's very hittable. The other one is very solid in his submissions, a little exposed to takedowns. I'm going to go with this fight doesn't go the distance. I don't see either one of these guys with their hands raised by decision. So we're going to say that somebody is either going to sleep or being finished, whether it's knockout, whatever the case may be. We're going to go that way, Brett, because right now when you got two prospects like this, they're looking to make a statement. Both guys very aggressive. This fight's not going all three.
Yep. Also in that small octagon at the Apex, probably music to fans' ears. They like those finishes, and I agree with you. It seems like there would be very likely that there would be one in this co-main event. All right, let's move to the welterweight division. A guy who is very intriguing, man. Miguel Baeza. He's the betting community has liked him. They've shown him respect when it comes to the betting odds. He's taking on Andre Fialho, who came in. Made his UFC debut, lost to Michel Pereira. Very, very tough fight in his UFC debut. I believe he took that on short notice. He's a guy from Portugal. I've heard a lot of good things about Fialho, and you can see that reflected in the line. Baeza, with even all of sort of his experience and the excitement around him, he's minus 175. Although he is coming off two losses. Granted, those were two losses to pretty good competition, Santiago Ponzinibbio and Chaos Williams. What do you make of Miguel Baeza at this point, man? Is this guy going to turn into anything? And is minus 175 just a little too high for him, or are you getting a little bit of a value because he's coming off of back-to-back losses?
You know what? Someone in Miguel Baeza, I think it was one of those situations where we got excited a little too quickly, a little too soon. You know, the Matt Brown fight was really cool, was exciting. Then he got a submission to follow that. Excuse me. But what we saw when the level of competition stepped up, he wasn't able to really make those adjustments. Against Ponzinibbio, it was tough. Against Cass Williams, he just wasn't landing as the fight was going on, and then he got dropped. For me here, and I think Fialho brings a lot of value as an underdog. You know, you saw him against Michel Pereira. To your point, Brett, he did take this on short notice. He is someone who's got a great chin, a lot of power, but not a ton of volume. And I think with two guys who are good strikers who look for the knockout, they are also worried about being knocked out, especially Baeza. We've seen that chin tested quite a bit in half of the fights so far he's had in the UFC. So we're going to go over 1.5 here. I don't trust Baeza yet. At this number, Fialho does bring problems. This fight can even go out of the ground. I don't see anyone getting a submission here. I think the first round, first 2 minutes, a lot of feeling out. You're going to see a lot of overhand rights from Fialho just to kind of back Baeza up. And Baeza, you're going to see that jab, some low kicks. I think this fight gets into at least the second part of the second round, if not the whole way. Should be a fun fight. I also think it might be fight of the night once these guys start throwing, but we're going to go with over 1.5 here.
Oh, wow. You're thinking fight of the night, but also over 1.5. So you're thinking a lot of action, but not a finish. That's an interesting call. Minus 185 for over 1.5. Yeah, Miguel Baeza, especially coming off of the back-to-back losses, he is a technical guy, and he won't put himself out there too much, even though I believe he's exciting to watch, but he's exciting because of his offense. I think defensively, yeah, he's a good guy to take on the over. Okay, let's go to Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Yanan Wu. The fight is taking place at Bantamweight. Bueno Silva moving up from flyweight, but so is Yanan Wu. So the size difference shouldn't be too big because these are two flyweights who are basically agreeing not to cut weight and move up to bantamweight. The difference here is in the line, minus 450 against Bueno Silva. Why is this line minus 450? And is it too high, or are we actually thinking that we'll throw her in on parlay or something else?
I am going to throw her in the parlay. I think she just has every other way to win, and I don't see where her opponent does. You know, for Silva, I was actually really impressed in her last fight against Manon Fiorot. She was able to hang in the pocket. She landed some stuff there. At some point, she was threatening, and we haven't seen too many people outside of, obviously Fiorot's last fight also went to a decision, but Silva's got a submission game. She's got a ground game, and her hands are actually pretty decent. She's going against somebody who just keeps losing decision after decision after decision. I just think that when she was brought to the UFC, the talent she fought prior to was just lesser. I don't mean to just downplay anyone's resume or skill level. It's just sometimes when you fight outside the UFC in these smaller organizations and you come over here, the level is just that much. There's more depth, and it's just a higher bar, and I just don't think she's adjusted well. I think Silva gets it done. I'll say by decision. Her opponent is not someone easily finished, as we've seen. But yeah, we're also going to throw her in the parlay. I need to get value out of that minus 450.
Okay, minus 110, Bueno Silva by decision. Let's go to the featherweight division. Pat Sabatini taking on TJ Laramie. We just talked about some pretty steep odds there, minus 450 for Bueno Silva. Well, Sabatini is even higher than that, minus 470 against TJ Laramie, who is looking for his first win in the UFC. He had his UFC debut. He lost to a veteran in Derek Minner. I think Derek Minner sometimes is underrated, so I don't look at that as a terrible loss here. But stylistically, Vegas just saying Sabatini has a clear path to victory at minus 470. What do you think of this one?
You know what? You're right. It wasn't a terrible loss. I think Derek Minner is someone who is underrated, but he's a little bit – the submission win was a little sloppy. You know, to get caught in the guillotine that early and the way it happened is kind of what threw me off about TJ Laramie. I think for Laramie, if he doesn't end up on top of you and he gets put on his back, he gets a little panicky sometimes, especially early on. Against someone at Pat Sabatini, that's a problem. Sabatini has shown us so far in every fight in the UFC, he just keeps getting better and better. And even when he fought through adversity, he was able to still get on top, reverse, and get the finish. For me, Sabatini has every right to be this big of a favorite. I think he is a problem in the division that people just might not know of yet. I also think he gets this win pretty easily, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, Brett, and say we get this win by submission.
I love it. Plus 160 on the submission win for Sabatini. Okay, this is going to take us to the last fight on this main card. It's at 170 pounds. It's Mounir Lazzez taking on Ange Loosa. Mounir has not fought since January of 2021 over there in Fight Island. This guy came in with a little bit of hype himself. Lost it a little bit when he lost to Warley Alves. He was supposed to fight Elizu Zaleski on this card. He was going to be an underdog in that fight. Now he fights Ange Loosa and is a minus 200 favorite in this matchup. Ange Loosa making his UFC debut. He's only 2-2 in his last 4 coming into this one. What do we know about Loosa? And is there any chance to get some value on him here at plus 170?
Loosa's a talented guy. You know, I think sometimes he just tries too hard for the knockout, doesn't let it come to him. I don't think the fight IQ is there yet. He just seems to force things. And when that happens, and Brett, you've been around for a while, you've seen this, when you try to force the knockouts, you make mistakes, you lose decisions, you get sloppy, and sometimes things happen. Against a guy in Lazzez, I do think Lazzez is a talented fighter. I think he probably just underestimated Warley Alves, who's been around for a while. Lazzez, I'm surprised, is only minus 200 because of the short notice fight. I like Lazzez here. I don't love that minus 200 number. So here's what I would advise to anyone that does want to bet this fight. The opportunity to bet on it is there because it's on the main card. So if you are up money and you're playing with house money, I don't mind laying the 2-1 there. I do think he wins. Striking will be better as long as he doesn't get into a brawl and leave his chin out there, which we've seen him do, unfortunately. But I think the time away may have given him some time to mature and develop a little bit outside the cage. We've seen sometimes with younger prospects that does help. I think it does here, so I like Lazzez.
Ah, yes. When you've had the good prelim night and you got cash money in your pocket and you're getting a little aggressive, and so you're like, hey, yeah, I'll sprinkle some on Mounir Lazzez. Maybe I shouldn't at minus 200, but you know what? I'm playing for free, so let's go. Let's press the luck. I love that. Start the main card off right. Hopefully we'll get there on the prelim. So let's before we get to the prelim picks, let's talk about your parlay. We already mentioned Bueno Silva is going to be on there at minus 450. Who else is on there, and what's it paying out, Ian?
Yeah, we're going to go with Silva. I look, Pat Sabatini, I think he gets this done pretty easily, so not having to worry about the method definitely helps. Let me get Hansi Kianzad. I think against Lena Landsberg, this is a tailor-made fight for her. She should be able to win this one, no questions asked. I like Boudet, and in the main event, over 1.5. And because we got 5 of these going on, we're going to get this at plus 275. So we're going to get back on track this week. I'm pretty confident in this parlay, and I want to start another winning streak here.
Heck yeah, dude. I mean, what did we hit? 4 in a row, and then we dropped our last 2. But those parlays ain't easy to hit. Let's get another one here this weekend. Okay, let's take a look at these prelims on ESPN Plus. They start at 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. Plenty of fights to bet on. Again, you got a couple wide margin odds there, but also some very close ones to take a look at. Ian, talk to me about these prelims and who are we taking in each one of them?
Yeah, look, Devin Clark against William Knight at heavyweight. There's going to be a lot of noise when those bodies hit the mat. I think if Devin Clark stays smart, paying attention to William Knight's last fight against Maxim Grishin, clearly you could see that once you put Knight on his back, he's kind of, I hate to say it, I would never say this to his face, but clueless. And Devin Clark is a really solid wrestler. I like Hansi Kianzad. That number, as we talk about, minus 410 parlay, but if you want to take it in the fight, I like her to win by decision. The Drakkar close versus Brandon Jenkins. You know what? At minus 625, no way. And he keeps talking about this neck injury from Jeremy Stevens. I like over 1.5 rounds here. I think that's a pretty safe play. Close his last, I think 3 or 4 wins have all come by decision. Same thing with Jenkins. Rafa Garcia, Jesse Ronson. Do not take your bathroom break during this fight. That will be a fun one. I think Jesse Ronson's got more ways to win. I like him there. Martin Boudet. Again, as much as Chris Barnett is the fun, huggable, dancing teddy bear, Boudet is no joke. I think he gets it done. Trey Ogden versus Jordan Levitt. If Levitt cannot get this fight to the floor, Ogden wins. Better striker, also good in his own right in jiu-jitsu. I like him here. Estela Nunes by decision. I just think that she's going to be too much for Hughes. And last but not least, I'm going with the underdog here in Kevin Kroom. His opponent has not fought in quite some time. Is a good striker, but what we've seen Kroom in all of his fights so far, very competitive, very tough, brings the fight. He also has an unassuming ground game. He just hasn't really used yet, but I heard from his coach, James Krause. So let's go with Kroom at plus 155, and that should wrap it up.
All right, let's take a look at a couple of these prelims just a little more closely. Chris Barnett, you described him as a big level teddy bear in there. I would agree with you. I think everybody would. It's almost sad that he is not fighting in an arena with fans, because that walkout when he gets all hyped is one of the best things that Barnett does. You know, I like asking these types of questions sometimes, Ian. I think about it, you know, in the NFL when a team looks really poor and then the next week you feel like that's reflected in the line and you're like, well, that was just one small sample size. If Chris Barnett does not finish his last fight via spinning wheel kick to the head, what does this line look like? Do you think that it has impacted that line and that we're actually getting extra value from it?
Minus 410. If he doesn't land a spinning wheel kick in that fight, yeah, you know what? Because him and Vellante, there wasn't a whole lot really going on in that fight. It was kind of slow. It was more about him landing. He was landing body shots. Vellante was landing leg kicks. And then all of a sudden the athleticism of Barnett showed. And it was a great win for him. You know, the respect he showed Vellante after and then the flip. And, you know, I think from all the dancing, his legs were tired where he couldn't stick that landing. Then again, it's a heavyweight doing a front flip. But to your point, yeah, if he doesn't get that wild highlight finish, this line probably would have been doubled. And I think Boudet is a talented guy who just hasn't had a chance to really show off yet.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have quite the depth of UFC 273 when we had 2 title fights and Khamzat Chimaev taking on Gilbert Burns, but there are definitely some interesting fights here at UFC Fight Night, headlined by Vicente Luque, Belal Muhammad. Again, you can watch it on actual big ESPN and ESPN Plus. The main card starts at 8:30. 8:30 Eastern Time. Prelims are on ESPN Plus only, at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So we've gone through the prelims, we've gone through your parlay, we've talked a lot about the main event. Give us your best bets for this weekend, Ian. Let's go 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, however many you got. Where are we going?
Yeah, this is the bounce back week. I'm feeling good, Brett. Feeling good. Luque Muhammad over 2.5 rounds in the main event. We're also going to roll the dice on Belal Muhammad winning at plus 145. Baez Anfilo over 1.5 rounds at minus 185. I'm surprised the line is actually that high. Makes me feel better about it. And then Estela Nunes just has more ways to win. We haven't seen Sam Hughes really show up at all. I don't see where she threatens this fight. I don't see where anyone gets finished. So I really like that one by decision. And then the Parker Parlay. We're going to start that streak. I know you really love the parlays too. Over 1.5 rounds main event. Silva, Sabatini, Kianzad, and last but not least, we just talked about it. Let's hope that Martin Boudet does not get hit with a spinning wheel kick by Chris Barnett at plus 275, and we'll cash that in.
You know what, man? If
that happens again,
if our parlay gets ruined by a spinning, if our parlay gets ruined by a spinning wheel kick by Chris Barnett, then you just got to live with it because you can't see those types of things coming. And I like it, man. Sometimes you load up on best bets. This is sort of a lighter weekend relatively for you. I know you like to put as many best bets out there as you can, but sometimes it's not about forcing it. 4 picks for best bets this weekend. Hopefully we cash all 4. We get the parlay. Perfect weekend this weekend by Ian Parker, and then we're moving on. Final thoughts, my man. Vicente Luque versus Belal Muhammad back at the Apex. What are you looking forward to this weekend? What are you looking forward to the rest of this month? Give me your final thoughts, and then we're out of here.
Oof. You know what? I'm really excited for this main event with Belal and Vicente Luque. I think this is 2 guys that have been flying under the radar for quite some time in the division. When you think of 170, you think of Kamaru Usman, you think of Colby Covington, and then obviously Khamzat Chimaev has kind of been that cloud hovering over, taking some shine away from other people. These 2 have been floating, flying, floating, whatever you want to call it, for quite some time, especially for someone like Belal, who's been on a tremendous win streak, made the adjustment since his last loss. And I'm curious to see where one of these guys go and what problems they may cause at the top of the mountain if and when they get there. So I'm really excited for this fight. 170 is becoming a really fun division.
I agree with you, man. This is going to be an interesting fight. Very interesting. I don't know which way it's going to go, and that's the point, right? We're taking Belal Muhammad, though, at plus money. I know that. Thank you for watching ESPN Best Bets. Hopefully, we're going to put some money in your pockets, and tune in next weekend, man. We keep the show goes on. It's a busy UFC schedule, and we will be there the entire time to win you money. For Ian Parker and myself, have a good week.